Our next film is an important new American movie called Silkwood, starring Meryl Streep as the late Karen Silkwood, who in 1974 became a martyr for the anti-nuclear power movement when she died suspiciously as she was about to blow the whistle to a New York Times reporter about unsafe working conditions involving the handling of plutonium at her plant in Oklahoma. In this scene, Karen is trying to steal documents from her supervisor's desk showing that the company she works for has been altering X-rays to make their fuel rods seem stronger than they really are.
What are you doing in there? What are you doing on my desk?
If I tell you, you promise not to tell anybody? I keep my pills in there, in that drawer, because I have an allergy, and they don't let you bring medication into the plant, so I hid them in there.
I don't believe you.
Well, I think you should take a person's word for something.
These don't look like antihistamines to me.
Winston, these are little tiny time capsules. Like the ones you see on TV.
That's a very scary moment in this movie because the film goes on to suggest that someone at the company then plotted to poison Karen with plutonium. But in addition to revealing Karen's perilous life at work, the movie also spends at least half of its time with Karen at home, living in a shack with an auto mechanic boyfriend, Kurt Russell, and a lesbian co-worker played by Cher. She and Cher's character get into a fight after both of their lovers have left them.
Let me tell you something, girl. Drew left on account of you. On account of you and Angela. Well, if you believe that, you're even crazier than people say. You took about as good care of Drew as you took of your kids. I know that you took good care of your kids. No. The only thing everybody says I'm crazy about is to live with you.
Now, what I really appreciate about this movie is scenes like that, not its nuclear power issues, but the way this fine film reminds us of who does the real work in America and under what conditions. This film reminded me of how infrequently American movies deal honestly with the working class. Silkwood does that, and it does it quite well. This is not just a movie, then, about one big dramatic death. It's about workers dying lots of little deaths every single day on the job. It's a fine film.
I agree with you. I think it's a really good film. And one of the things that surprised me about it, pleasantly, was that it's not a conspiracy film. And this film was originally announced 3, 4, 5 years ago as a project. At one point, Jane Fonda was going to star in it. Various other people were interested. And I think it was seen then as an expose about the evil people who run the nuclear factory and how they killed Karen Silkwood.
China Syndrome Part 2.
Exactly, right. In this film, it's left ambiguous as to exactly how Karen Silkwood died or if anybody killed her. It's left up in the air because it's really a portrait of these people, of the way they work, of the conditions, of the way the union in Washington really doesn't really care about them, and how the workers are more concerned with keeping their jobs than with plutonium or anything else, and about how Karen Silkwood gets involved in this process almost against her own will. It's really fascinating at that level. It's so much more interesting than if it were a conspiracy movie.
Yes, and it reminded me of another film that Meryl Streep made, The Deer Hunter, where she played this worker in a one-factory town again. And that film showed who fought the war in Vietnam. It showed who left one hell at work to go fight a war. This film was, again, about just the grind, the grinding down of the spirit at work. And that whole class of people is ignored in Hollywood movies, and I appreciated seeing that.
And I also love the performances. Kurt Russell from all the Disney pictures, and Cher from Sonny and Cher, you wouldn't think could play absolutely authentic, convincing, three-dimensional lovable, heartbreaking characters, and they do. We expect a great performance from Streep, and we get one, but these other two are surprisingly good.
Yeah, they're not Hollywood stars condescending to a working class role. They're authentic.
That's right. So I think the one that is an obvious choice is Silkwood, which I think is a real terrific movie.
I think people are thinking it's maybe too downbeat for them. I found it curiously up in the sense that I was startled by its portrait of the working class, and I was not walking out of the theater holding my head in my hands. Okay. This film may be the most eagerly anticipated film of the year, featuring the great Meryl Streep and the great Jack Nicholson in a film directed by the often great Mike Nichols, based on a novel by the fine and funny writer Nora Ephron about her broken marriage to Watergate journalist Carl Bernstein, who, at least according to the novel, apparently had extramarital affairs during her 2 pregnancies in a superstar marriage that ended sadly in divorce. But for all of this incredible talent involved, this film is shockingly flimsy. Basically, all there is to it is Nicholson briefly courting Streep in one scene, a marriage ceremony, then some remodeling of a house, a lot of this badly played for comic effect. Then he starts cheating on her until she calls it quits. End of movie. Guys can be jerks. Thank you. We knew that. Here's the courting scene.
My wife's name was Kimberly. One of the very first Kimberlys.
My husband had hamsters.
Me too.
Not as a grown-up, you didn't. He had hamsters named Arnold and Shirley. And he was always whipping up little salads for them in the Slice-O-Matic and buying them extremely small sweaters at a pet boutique in Regal Park. Also, there was a certain amount of talking in squeaky voices.
Both of you?
Well, he was Arnold. And I was Shirley.
Not credible, not funny. The film is set in the world of New York and Washington journalism, where the wife is always the last one to know because the reporters are the first to know, especially gossip columnist Catherine O'Hara.
Thelma Rice is having an affair.
No. With whom?
No.
I don't know.
Oh, come on.
With someone. This is what I know.
Well, it shouldn't be that difficult to figure out who. It has to be someone taller than she is, which rules out practically everybody.
Maybe it's one of the Washington Bullets.
How do you know this?
She's talking about buying a condominium and staying in Washington if Jonathan is sent to Bangladesh. Now, obviously, she's having an affair with someone.
Maybe it's Senator.
Well, she's a funny character, but the humor doesn't work in this later scene after Streep has found out her husband. She treats the infidelity as an excuse for a practical joke.
Anything going in this town.
Thelma came over here yesterday. She's very angry at you, and so am I. She had lunch with Betty, and Betty told her that you said she had herpes.
I never said herpes. Come here, you little mouse pie.
You must have said something to her.
I said she had an infection. Mommy brought you a lolly. An orange lollipop. I'm sorry, really, I am.
Well, Thelma's furious at you.
Thelma's furious at me. That's really rich.
Listen, you bastard, you tell Thelma she comes over here one more time, I'll tell Betty she has the clap.
Now, you see, that didn't get me at all, because that's a setup scene for the little baby clapping. And the fact is, if Thelma, being the one that Jack Nicholson is having the affair with, if that's going on, Meryl Streep is just going to be flat out angry. She isn't going to have the time to decide to play practical jokes on Thelma. She's going to want to clobber her husband and not make jokes. That was not funny to me. And what we are hungering for in this movie is really some genuine confrontation, as we would expect from anyone in real life. Here are two of our greatest actors, so let's strip away the jokes and let them go at it. They don't have to scream. They just have to be as smart and as revealing as they have been in their other films. Nicholson is oddly dull in this picture. Where is the self-reflective character he played in 5 Easy Pieces? Streep has been much more intelligent in a half-dozen films, even from pictures that weren't such big hits, like The Seduction of Joe Tynan or Falling in Love, 2 other films about marital infidelity that she was involved in. I think you have to blame Mike Nichols for some of the dumb humor, too, in this film. Gay jokes at a party, jokes about remodeling a house, and a payoff that is about as original as a cream pie in the face. There are a couple of good moments in Heartburn, but boy, what a letdown. And I can't tell you how I was really looking forward to this picture.
I didn't know when the movie was over why this marriage had a film made about it. They didn't make a marriage in the film that was worth making a movie about.
Absolutely.
And you can start at the end and work backwards to the beginning. This movie doesn't have an ending. It doesn't have a conclusion. It doesn't have a place it was going that contained something it wanted to say about these two people.
Do you think they were afraid to really tell the story of what happened in this marriage because Carl Bernstein, as everyone knows, threatened lawsuits?
I'll tell you one thing. The movie, as it appears on the screen, doesn't have any good parts. So you can always wonder whether all the good parts were taken out. This is just routine. This is no more interesting than the marriages of the people in the audience. And if it were going to be a slice of life it wasn't as interesting. If it were going to be a slice of life about a real marriage, that'd be one thing. But here we have Streep, we have Nicholson, we have a lot of chemistry going on in there. There should be some kind of an elevating either humor or ethic or insight or something, not just all of this whining, and all told from her point of view.
Yeah.
The male character, I mean, I'm sure he was, in the movie at least,
a jerk.
He's a jerk, but at least there ought to be something in there from his point of view.
The point is, I think they went a lot more to humor than they went to passion and anger, and that's a mistake, because we're talking about marital infidelity, not, for most people, a laughing matter.
Okay, next movie. Our next movie is named Heartburn, and this is one of the major disappointments of the year because everyone involved in it had given us so many good movies in the past. Who would have guessed that a movie inspired by a famous celebrity marriage, a tempestuous marriage that inspired a best-selling novel, a movie starring Jack Nicholson and Meryl Streep as the unhappily married couple, a movie directed by Mike Nichols, who made The Graduate and Catch-22, that this movie would turn out to be a bore, and yet that's what happened. There was little joy and little passion in Heartburn, but there sure was a lot of gossip and a lot of backbiting, as, for example, in this scene.
Thelma Rice is having an affair.
No. With whom?
No.
I don't know.
Oh, come on.
With
You
someone.
don't know.
This is what I know.
And, of course, Nicholson is having an affair right while he's sitting there having that conversation. Nicholson and Streep are capable of great electricity in their performances, but you don't see it in this movie. They both seem sort of dispirited, going through the motions. Maybe the project itself never really took off and excited them. Maybe the problem was that the screenplay was by Nora Ephron, who based it on her own novel and based the novel on her own marriage, and she just wasn't able to stand back far enough to see the humor. And boy, I couldn't see the humor either.
Or the pain, actually. The humor that they threw in the film seemed to me totally illogical. Here I'm going to see with two of our greatest stars a movie about the dissolution of a marriage. No more important subject, probably, at least in domestic life. And what do we get? Whole passages about how difficult it is for them to build their house. Remember the running around with the contractors and all? And I'm thinking, where's the pain? Where's either the joy of the relationship, which isn't shown, or where is the pain? It's almost as if they left out all the important scenes and put in all the stuff in between. You know that marriage didn't break up because of problems with contractors. It broke up because of problems in here, and the stuff in here is not on the screen. That's right. It's absolutely missing. It's called When Harry Met Sally, and it's Rob Reiner's latest film since The Princess Bride, and it stars Billy Crystal as a young man who is cynical about how men and women relate to each other.
What I'm saying is, and this is not a come on in any way, shape, or form, is that men and women can't be friends because the sex part always gets in the way.
That's not true. I have a number of men friends and there is no sex involved.
No, you don't.
Yes, I do.
No, you don't.
Yes, I do.
You only think you do.
You're saying I'm having sex with these men without my knowledge?
No, what I'm saying is they all want to have sex with you.
That's Meg Ryan as Sally. Years later, they meet again and try to establish a friendship.
Would you like to have dinner with me sometime?
Are we becoming friends now?
Well, yeah.
They do become friends, which amazes Harry as he explains to his best male buddy.
I can say anything to her.
Are you saying you can say things to her you can't say to me?
No, it's just different. It's a whole different perspective. I get the woman's point of view on things. She tells me about the men that she goes out with, and I can talk to her about the women that I see.
The script was written in part by Nora Ephron, and it has a certain maturity.
I'm too structured. I'm completely closed off.
But in a good way.
No, I drove him away. And I'm gonna be 40.
When?
Someday.
In 8 years.
But it's there.
It's very difficult to write contemporary comedy, and When Harry Met Sally, while it's not in the same class as Annie Hall, the film does have some cute moments and a touch of the anguish of modern relationships with partners having maybe too much time on their hands. Actually, it's a better comedy than social commentary, with one hilarious scene involving Meg Ryan proving to Billy Crystal that most women, most any woman, can fake sexual response. A marginal thumbs up for me.
I give it a thumbs up, and I liked it a lot. I thought that the dialogue was very funny, that the characters were very attractive. I like this Meg Ryan, who was in Inner Space and DOA, two movies that didn't get probably the attention that both of them deserved. And I think that Crystal here is so tender. He's so warm. That's the key to his performance here, because everybody knows he's a stand-up comic and he can be wise and cynical and sarcastic.
Right.
But the way in which he apologizes to her a couple of times in the movie is something that I think is very hard for a male to do and a male actor to do, and he does it very well. But one thing I have a problem with you is with the scene that probably got the biggest laugh, and will get the biggest laugh, and that's when they're both sitting in a restaurant. She says any woman can fake sexual climax. He doesn't believe her, and so she does it right there in the restaurant, you know, faking, you know. It's a funny scene. I agree it's a funny scene. I don't believe any woman would ever do that. I didn't believe she would do it. I don't believe any woman would do that.
Yeah, but it's a movie.
Well, but it's a movie that pretends to a realism that scene violates.
I don't think that the film is all that real. That's where I find it, the funny thing, when I compare it with Annie Hall, and there's a lot in the film that is very similar to Annie Hall, that's where the film started to suffer for me by comparison, because you know, Annie Hall, to me, was a faultless picture. I mean, every line counted, and every line seemed top of the head stuff. There was times here where the stuff didn't work. Well, but that's a funny bit.
Well, it is a funny bit. I'm not saying it isn't a funny bit, but it shows, in a way, one of the weaknesses of the movies, that they will go for the gag even if it violates the character. And Reiner, I think, is inviting comparisons to Woody Allen because he has the cutaways to the old couples who are talking. That's something that
their relationship.
And also, he uses the same kind of music that Allen would use, and he uses the same kind of structure. But still, I mean, in a way, it's unfair to compare it to Annie Hall.
No, it's not unfair. We do that all the time.
It's a very, very entertaining movie.
It's entertaining, but we do that. We compare pictures of kind all the time.
That's right. So we were right after all. I guess you're right.
I think the word you were right is what you were looking for.
Thank you very much. When we come back...
The next film is called Cookie, yet another mafia comedy, a subject some people don't think is a laughing matter. I just think this film isn't in the same league with the similar Wise Guys or Married to the Mob. Peter Falk plays an imprisoned mobster who doesn't get along with his daughter. She even dumps on him when she visits him in the slammer.
Take the gum out of your mouth when you're talking to me. You look like a hooker.
Once he's free, the two of them continue to be at each other's throat. Even Peter Falk's girlfriend, Diane Wiest, Cookie's mother, can't keep them apart.
Listen, I can't stand this. Please, my heart's beating so fast I can't even breathe. Oh, God. Oh, God, I'm getting palpitations. You both stop it!
Falk makes an attempt at peaceful coexistence by having his daughter work as his chauffeur.
Well, who is it?
Feds.
We won't be losing?
Do I want to see you lose him? No, I was planning we all go to Playland together, ride the Cyclone.
That's Emily Lloyd as Cookie. There's a very talented cast in this picture, and director Susan Sodelman, who made Desperately Seeking Susan, certainly knows how to make colorful films. But the dominant reaction I had to this picture was, I've been here before. I saw nothing new to distinguish it from other recent mob comedies. And other than an attempt for a few laughs, I didn't really understand what the writers, Nora Ephron and Alice Ireland, were trying to do. Those are good writers. They did Silkwood together. I think that they have good actors here, but a bad script. I don't understand the point of this picture.
If I had to pick one word to describe this movie, it would be innocuous, and that's the last word you want to apply to a comedy about the mob. You mentioned Wise Guys and Married to the Mob. Yes. I also mentioned Spike of Bensonhurst, which came out within the last year, as movies that cover the same material and covered at a higher energy level with more satire, with more sharply edged performances, and with a funnier result. This movie is pleasant enough. I wasn't sitting there appalled by how bad it was, but it never really took off, and it never really electrified.
It had nothing special about it. When the decision was made to make this picture, what did they think they were doing? I mean,
Why did this picture have to be made? It didn't have to be made.
Is the Steve Martin comedy My Blue Heaven, and this is a disappointing, decidedly minor movie, a comedy in which Martin plays a dull variation on his wild and crazy guy character from Saturday Night Live. He plays a New York Italian mobster sent to California as part of the Federal Witness Protection Program. He's sort of a crooked fish out of water here, still committing petty crimes like auto theft and covering it up with elaborate lies, which angers Assistant District Attorney Joan Cusack.
There is no such thing as Thanksgiving in Italy. It is an American holiday. And I've been to Italy. It's not
To Florence, right?
Yes.
Ever been to Sicily by any chance?
No.
Thanksgiving is very big in Sicily.
That is truly dull material, and the script was written by Nora Ephron, who wrote Heartburn, and she also wrote When Harry Met Sally. She's not at her top form in this picture. Much to my surprise, I think Steve Martin was one of the weakest elements also in this lame comedy, trying to skate by with just that spiky hairdo and many of the same physical movements of the wild and crazy guy, especially when he dances the merengue with FBI agent Rick Moranis. A cute premise here, to be sure, but no delivery.
You know, I think the Nora Ephron script that this really is related to most closely is Cookie, which was also about the domestic life and the domestic problems of mobsters. I like Steve Martin a lot more than you did. I thought that his offbeat and his off-timed vocal delivery was kind of funny. I don't like the movie. I don't think the movie really pays off. Doesn't generate the energy that it needs. The plot meanders. The Joan Cusack character was not as funny as some of her characters in other movies like Men Don't Leave or Working Girl. But still, I like Steve Martin in this film. I think he was kind of winning.
I saw this character before. It was not fresh to me.
Okay. What brings you to this hellhole in that tight skirt? Don't tell me, I know.
Code violations, Mr. Kritsky. The tenants have informed me you haven't addressed any of them.
That's Joe Pesci in The Super, the first starring role for the superb dramatic actor who won last year's Best Supporting Actor Oscar for Goodfellas, playing that terrifying mobster. He also played a bumbling thief in Home Alone, and I didn't care for his physical comedy in that film, and I don't like it here either in The Super. He's way over the top as the son of a New York slumlord who is given a tenement for his birthday, is promptly convicted of building code violations, and is sentenced to house arrest for 4 months, so he's soon sleeping in his own rat trap.
What are you doing here?
Nothing.
What do you mean, nothing?
Well, what else does it mean? Nothing.
What, are you spying on me?
No.
You casing this joint so the brothers could rob it later?
Yeah, you really got some real choice stuff here. We can't wait to get our hands on it.
That's a movie kid reciting lines. Later on, Pesci goes downstairs to check out the sports car he left on the street overnight. Hardly likely.
Kritsky, looks like your automobile lost a little weight.
One of his tenants, now neighbors, is played by Reuben Blades. He wants Pesci to join in neighborhood activities such as basketball. The warming up process is beginning.
Don't worry about it. It's okay. You're safe. You're with me.
Yeah, like you're going to protect me if I get attacked.
I'll call 911 when they're done with you.
Well, anyone knows where this picture is going, and it goes there directly with a big character transformation in Pesci. The Super deals with a powerful situation that would have made a great drama or a really wicked comedy, but this is just overblown silliness with one stereotype bumping into another. I'd like to see this story remade right away. The Super isn't the picture it should have been or could have been. It trivializes a great premise.
You know, in a way, this movie is a remake because it has the same premise as The Landlord, a Hal Ashby picture in 1970. Right. Remember, Beau Bridges was the rich white kid who moves into the tenement and gets to know everyone. But in that picture, there was a real effort made to make the people in that building into individuals. The movie starred Diana Sands and Pearl Bailey and a whole group of really good character actors, and he got to know them and get to know them as human beings. Here, you're right, it's just a character transformation. He's a louse at the beginning of the movie, he moves in, and we know as sure as God made green apples that at the end of this picture, he's going to be a nice guy. It's so predictable. There isn't a single surprise in the whole movie.
I think what the people who made this film haven't realized is that with the new black cinema, with the raising of stakes of racism, or the issues of racism in America, that we have moved way beyond this, so that the audience is way beyond this. They want to see the subject tackled, but written at a much more brighter, confrontational, real level.
20th Century Fox presents the directorial debut of Nora Ephron, the writer of When Harry Met Sally.
Opal, Erica, if you're watching, it's time to go to bed now.
This Is My Life.
You called a radio station?
Sam. Sam.
Tom Hanks plays a widowed father in Sleepless in Seattle, and Ross Malinger plays his young son, who believes it's time for his dad to stop feeling so depressed and get married again. So in that scene, he calls into a national radio talk show and puts his dad on the line, and that sets into motion an unabashedly romantic love story that is old-fashioned and corny and very predictable, and yet I enjoyed it. One of the listeners to the program is played by Meg Ryan as a Baltimore newspaper reporter who is engaged to a boring man and finds herself falling in love with this other man she knows only by his voice over the radio.
I don't even know him. I am having all of these fantasies about some man I have never even met. But what I really don't want to do is end up always wondering what might have happened and knowing I could have done something.
She writes a letter to the man in Seattle, and it's the one letter that impresses his son.
All right. Where is Seattle? Right. Where's Baltimore? Ah, it's right there. Look, 1, 2, 3, 4, there's like 26 states.
Hanks is dating a woman, but his son hates her. One day when they take her to the airport, Hanks tries to explain his situation.
There's no such thing as a perfect...
Sleepless in Seattle was directed and co-written by Nora Ephron, who also wrote another good cross-country romance, When Harry Met Sally. This movie is a throwback to the lush Hollywood comic romances of years ago, and indeed, the Meg Ryan character's favorite movie is An Affair to Remember, which they look at and refer to in this film. The plot is thin and the events are contrived, but the movie does have charm, and the characters are so likable we hope they get together even while we realize the plot is shamelessly manipulating us. The movie is good, light, escapist entertainment.
Well, I agree with the words that you use, Roger. Thin and tired and
good and light and charming and romantic.
No, I'll say this. The two actors are very charming.
Yes,
There's no question about it.
And you wanted them to get together at the end, didn't you?
That you do want.
And you were happy when they did?
No. I wanted them to get together at the beginning. By the middle of the picture, it is so light, thin, and tired, and so empty. And you mentioned When Harry Met Sally. Now, I never thought, which I liked, I never thought I would think that that film was sophisticated, but by comparison, its characters are so much better written.
This is a deliberately old-fashioned film, Gene, and I think that what you have to do is describe what it is rather than what it isn't or the movie you would have made.
No, I think, what I'm saying is, I'm surprised, and I'll just ask you, I mean, you ascribe negative qualities to it, so you know what I'm talking about. Don't back away from them. When in doubt, all that Nora Ephron came up with here was a song that was supposed to tell us how we were supposed to feel. When those songs came up, she presents as time goes by rather than writing a story.
That's not fair,
gives
Gene.
us Somewhere Over the
all,
Rainbow rather than writing a story.
Well, there are a couple of pretty good songs.
They're very good songs.
Especially since the whole movie lives in the world that's evoked by songs like that.
I think that it is just too thin to get me to support it all the way through.
Okay, coming up next.
Mixed Nuts, the latest film by director Nora Ephron, whose Sleepless in Seattle was such a smash. But this picture, Mixed Nuts, is another contender for the year's worst film, a stunningly empty comedy with Steve Martin as a suicide hotline worker whose agency faces eviction from landlord Gary Shanley. Now, these are two major comic talents in a dreary scene.
We don't exactly have a cash flow. After you save someone's life, you can't ask them for money.
Doctors can. Aren't you some sort of doctor, Philip?
No.
Oh, tell me, in all of your calls, has anybody impaled themselves?
No.
Oh.
And how's this for an original joke? The fruitcake that nobody wants.
A fruitcake?
Yes.
Remarkably like the one I gave you last year.
The would-be romance in the picture is between Steve Martin and Rita Wilson as his assistant.
My heart is racing, and I'm feeling all nervous and sick.
That's the way I felt since the day I met you.
Your sweater was buttoned funny that day. One side stuck up higher than the other and poked up into your chin.
You remember that?
I'll never forget it.
I know what went wrong with Mixed Nuts. A lot of top-flight actors were asked to do just a couple of scenes for director Ephron, and they all signed on because, hey, how bad could it be? Mixed Nuts is how bad? Very bad.
It's bad.
Wow.
It's bad. Woo, is it bad?
I mean, I don't know.
It's really, really bad.
I don't understand.
Why would you have Madeline Kahn in a movie and have her spend the whole movie stuck in an elevator screaming? I mean, what did she think when she was looking at the script? Yeah. Oh, great, I have 17 screams.
The movie is just, it's not worth even talking about anymore. Just forget about it. What do you think, huh?
Well, there's a lot of names that people might get drawn on. They might, you know, in the ads it's going to say from the director of Sleepless in Seattle. So here's our warning.
This movie isn't Sleepless. It's not in Seattle.
There you go.
And it's not any good.
Our first film is Michael, and surprisingly, the best parts of this picture have nothing to do with John Travolta's angel character. It's all of the supporting characters who are so much fun to watch. And here are those characters. They work for a supermarket tabloid edited by Bob Hoskins. William Hurt plays a reporter assigned to go from the Chicago headquarters to Iowa to interview and photograph a man described to be an angel.
Put it on the front page. Bold. Some white, fluffy clouds. There you go. A drift of sky.
You got it. Along for the ride, his co-workers, a ramshackle journalist played beautifully by Robert Pastorelli, and a mysterious new employee who describes herself as an angel expert, played by Andy McDowell.
Oh, we don't know exactly how it works with angels.
How it works? If he's in the room, then you're with him. If he's somewhere else, then you're not.
And that's why we can't see him now. He's not here.
Are you impaired in some way that I haven't noticed, miss?
Finally, we do meet the John Travolta character, and he really is an angel who has a magnetism that draws women, much to the consternation of the reporters.
Yeah. It was right around the time I invented standing in line.
You invented standing in line?
Before then, everybody just milled around. It was a mess.
The angel's message? Pretty obvious.
Remember what John and Paul said?
The apostles?
No, the Beatles. All you need is love.
For all of its talk about love, Michael does not achieve any epiphanies. The Travolta character is too obviously drawn. I'm also tired of the way that director Nora Ephron relies on vintage pop music tunes to move her films along. But the script of Michael is sharply written, and the supporting cast is beautifully constructed and played. They work together as a unit, and on that basis, a marginal thumbs up.
Thumbs up for me, too. I don't mind pop music. Nora Ephron shouldn't be singled out when every single person does pop music in every other movie.
No, but she uses a lot of it in place of a scene. It's not just background. She does musical interludes a lot more than anybody else.
Doesn't bother me. And what I also did like was the Travolta performance, which I think is interesting in the way he's so laid back. And he gives, it's almost like parables, in that when he gives his lessons, they're little wacky asides. And then talking about his duties as an angel, like he invented standing in line, and he's a writer too. What did you write? Psalm 85. Of course, they weren't numbered at that time. I think the dialogue, you mentioned the dialogue, is very well written in his case too, so I maybe like the movie a little more than you did.
I want to re-emphasize Robert Pastorelli's work. We know the kind of journalist he's playing, this tabloid hack, who is still very sharp. And he's got that character down pat. It's a real good supporting
performance. That's a nice detail that he is less important to the newspaper than his pet dog, which is the paper's mascot. Okay, next movie.
In You've Got Mail, which could be called Quarreling in New York, America's favorite movie couple, the impossibly good Tom Hanks and the impossibly cute Meg Ryan, have awakened from their dreams in Seattle and now play computer pen pals, not knowing their real-life identities or that they are actually bitter business rivals. So they unknowingly have a crush on each other as they fight.
You were spying on me, weren't you?
And Greg Kinnear, in another good performance as the other man, plays Ryan's newspaper columnist boyfriend. In the 1940 version of this story, The Shop Around the Corner, the romantic lead was played by Jimmy Stewart, to whom Hanks is often compared. The similarity? Their decency. We immediately want their characters to get whatever they want. And here, of course, it's Meg Ryan.
I would really appreciate it if you would just go away.
They're awfully good together, and co-writer-director Nora Ephron may be creating a classic movie team, having previously paired Hanks and Ryan in Sleepless in Seattle, following their initial work together on the little scene, Joe versus the Volcano, back in 1990. If she has another project in mind for them, I'd be curious to see if they could handle something perhaps with darker elements. I think they could. I certainly enjoyed them in You've Got Mail.
Well, of course, Joe versus the Volcano had its darker elements, and I'm glad you mentioned it because I love that movie. But I love this one, too. And I think you put your finger right on it. We like this movie for real, elemental, basic reasons. We like Hanks. We like Meg Ryan. We like them together. We want them to get together.
Exactly.
What delicious irony that her life is being destroyed by this man she hates, and the only person she has to turn to is the same man as her anonymous chat room friend from the internet, so that she doesn't know. And the fact that it's very clever the way the screenplay is constructed, so that he knows who she is before she knows who he is, and that makes for even more heart-rending. When he turns away and walks out of that coffee shop, your heart goes out to the poor guy.
Yeah. What do you think about them flirting with marriage in the next film?
There will be a next film, won't there?
You bet there will.
Yeah, well, they are great together. You're absolutely right. Okay.
It's call waiting. Hold it.
I hate call waiting. It is completely rude.
Don't you have call waiting?
Hanging up.
Did you hang up? Hello? You know what his last words were? You and Russ deserve to have that money. All right, key lime pie.
Lucky numbers.
One second. Look, I don't know if you know this, but I'm Darren, okay? They replaced Darren on the original Bewitched, and no one noticed!
Will Ferrell plays a desperate actor, even willing to do a TV series to revive his dismal movie career. He plays Jack Wyatt, who agrees to star in a retread version of TV's Bewitched.
You're a witch? And you waited until our wedding night to tell me? I don't believe this!
The new Darren wants Samantha to be played by a complete unknown, and Nicole Kidman is discovered as the fetching Isabel when Jack finds her during his quest for the perfect nose twitch.
I need you. Just come and show everyone what you look like when you...
What?
Wiggle your nose.
Now here's the gimmick. Isabel really is a witch, suffering an identity crisis. She wants to find out how humans get through the day without resorting to magic tricks.
I am through with just snapping my fingers and getting my way.
No breakfast after 11.
Oh. My absolutely last thing.
Michael Caine gives wise advice as Isabel's dad, a 1,000-year-old warlock who thinks she's just going through a phase.
Well, if it isn't my spellcasting magical daughter who gave up witchcraft.
I want to be like everyone else.
Money.
That was my last thing as a witch.
Isabel is willing to play along with the TV gig because she's got a crush on the leading man.
He's idiotic, and yet I find him completely charming.
Director Nora Ephron also brought us Sleepless in Seattle and You've Got Mail, and she does know romantic comedy. Kidman and Ferrell are charming and a great-looking couple here, but they get too many punchlines and not enough plot.
What would Samantha do?
Okay, I'll admit I've never seen even one episode of the Bewitched TV series, so maybe I just don't have the shorthand affection for these characters that could make me like it. But on the other hand, I can judge it without any preconceived notions, and that means I think Bewitched is only mildly entertaining. Kidman and Ferrell are good, but the screenplay never really connects their characters, and it's only good enough for 2.5 stars from me. I'm Roger Ebert, ABC 7 News.
That's it? It's a work in progress. It may never be finished.